We now know that to design a warm-up in group fitness, you need to know the origin and insertion of each muscle, the direction that that muscle travels in, and what action happens to a muscle if it contracts or relaxes. We also need to know the range of motion of each joint. Knowing these allows us to understand movement. We then combine this knowledge with our understanding of the RAMP principles to design an effective and satisfactory warm-up for our group fitness classes or training sessions. The RAMP principle stands for raise, activate, mobilize, and potentiate. We raise the body's heart rate and temperature. We activate the muscles and joints. And potentiate means we practice the moves of the main phase, albeit at a lower intensity. While each letter of the RAMP stands for an individual concept, it is important that you understand that all of the RAMP concepts can happen at the same time. For example, if I did heel flicks, this exercise will both raise the heart rate and our body's temperature while activating the quads and mobilizing the knee joints. Now that we are getting the pieces of the jigsaw together, you can see that you can't mobilize and activate muscles and joints while doing movements to raise your heart rate and temperature unless you have an understanding of how muscles work and the range of motion at each joint. Up until now, your class planning experience may have led you to believe you start your class plan design by designing the warm-up first. This is wrong. In order to design an effective warm-up, you must design your main phase first and work backwards. Think back to the RAMP principles. The job of the warm-up is to raise the body's temperature and increase the heart rate, activate and mobilize the joints for the work they are about to do, and potentiate, which means to practice and activate the specific muscles and prepare the body for the specific movement mechanics that you're about to do in the main phase. You can't possibly do this unless you plan your main phase first. So take out your notebooks and jot this down. The first step in planning your warm-up is to plan your main phase of your class first. With your main phase designed, you can now work backwards and design a warm-up that targets the specific muscle groups and movements that you're going to do in the main phase. Okay, whip out those notes and jot down step 2. Step 2 is to look at the exercises that you're going to do in the main phase. Identify the movements and the muscle groups you need to activate and mobilize. And now, step 3 is to design the warm-up to match and hit the specific muscle groups that you need to hit. So notes out. Step 1, design the main phase. Step 2, identify the movements and the muscle groups that you're going to use in the main phase. And step 3 is to go back and design the warm-up to match the movements of your main phase. We now have all our ducks in a row for the process of planning and designing a warm-up. But before we can get stuck into designing warm-ups, I need to stress something super important. Every class needs a different and specific warm-up designed for it. When it comes to teaching fitness, a one-size-fits-all approach never works. Let me say it again. A one-size-fits-all approach never, ever, ever, ever works. Each class is different, and although your warm-ups may have similarities, and you can of course use similar moves, particularly if you're working with the same groups, the same customers keep showing up, of course you can use similar moves, but the warm-up should never be the exact same. If your main phase is different, your warm-up needs to be different. Remember, when it comes to teaching fitness, a one-size-fits-all approach never works.